So he's been advised and not having been taken.
Executive power
Those pieces of advice have not been taken.
vested in one person under Article 58 of this Constitution. It's one person. Indeed, even within cabinet, after they've advised on policy, cabinets have the finance committee. The finance committee is not chaired by the vice president. In Akufo-Addo's government, the finance committee is not chaired by the vice chairman, the vice president. Just as under President Mills, the finance committee.
Beyond that,
can I finish with due respect?
The NPP sold Dr. Bawumia during this campaign period as the economic messiah, the economic whiz kid who changed things for us. It's only fair that we come back to you and ask what has happened to your economic whiz kid.
The management of the economy is at the behest of the person who wields executive power. And no vice president supplants the president. You can only advise. Do you guys, if anything goes wrong in a ministry, step out to blame a deputy minister? You blame the minister.
So the point now
why are you conspiring to lay every blame on Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia?
So the point now is that the NPP wants us to de-link the performance of the vice president from that of President Akufo-Addo.
We are a collective group, cabinet. He's part of it. I was just making the point that even the constitutionally set functions for the president, in 1996, everything was removed under Jerry Rawlings when he had this problem with the then Vice President Nakar.
Right.
Now, so the position of the vice president is only to advise his boss. The buck stops with the boss.
So the boss didn't act, although the vice president advised.
So if there is any credit, it goes to the president. If there is any fault, you may blame the regime, the president. To say that this man has expertise in this field, so necessarily he must be held accountable, is a most unfortunate appreciation of the Constitution.
How do you convince us that we can extricate the vice president and allow him to prove his competency at this point? Because that is how you sold it to us.
I was just asking you when you posed the question to me that when we had Dumso, John Mahama was the chairman of the economic management team under President Mills. Did anybody bring his name into the fray? Nobody did at the time. So why are you insisting?
I've told you two things, that we should talk about the NPP. Secondly, in this case, you have made promises and we are holding you to that promise, but you are saying we shouldn't.
No, so Bawumia, it was. You are telling me that Bawumia, it was who came to you and told you that he's the economic whiskey. Is that the case?
I thought you were working as a team. The NPP sold as a candidate.
No, you see.
You sold as a candidate.
Let's make a
He
distinction.
held a lot of conferences. He had a lot of seminars where he told us how competent he is as an economist. Poking holes into the NDC's government.
Yes. As a minority leader, I did the same thing.
Right.
As a minority leader, I did the same thing. Leading, of course, you do know that a party in opposition is generally run on the shoulders of the party in parliament. So I led the party in parliament, and for 8 years I was critiquing the performance of the NDC. So would you say that because of what I did, if there is any perceived failure, it should also be laid on my shoulders?
Absolutely. But also, I want to ask you, are you telling me that the vice president was just a figurehead for what the NPP wanted to do?
I've not said so. You see, we are stranding out the issues. I'm just telling you that lumping everything on the shoulders of every failure on the shoulders of economic failure, I should say.
Yes.
Or maybe non-performance on the back or on the shoulders of the vice president doesn't hold, because the Constitution does not make him ultimately responsible for a decision. Executive power is vested.
But the NPP knew that before they sold that dream to the Ghanaian people.
Well, you see, Akufo-Addo is a lawyer, right? A human rights persona, as you do know him, one who will go for the rule of law. And the main challenge in the economy, as he perceived at the time, one to do with governance, the rule of law, and also the economy. And he was looking for somebody to complement him on the ticket. And he found that person in Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia to provide that complementarity.
I see.
Right. But I'm insisting that ultimately the buck stops with the president and not the vice president. 2017, 2018, 2019, when we were growing at 7% averagely, did you attribute the success to Dr. Bawumia?
Well, the fact that you haven't been able to grow beyond that, show leadership and competency post that.
We had inherited an economy that was not doing well at all.
I see. And then you had the IMF at that point.
Yes, we had the IMF.
Uh-huh.
We inherited the IMF.
Yes.
And yet the economy was plummeting. I'm suggesting to you that whereas our association with the IMF is edging us up from 0.5%, right, to close to 2% the other time, and now in last time around we're thinking that we'll be able to grow at 1.5%. Mm-hmm. So we are climbing up. That is consistency in growth.
Are we?
Yes.
Even now?
When you begin from 0.5 and you go beyond 1% and now 3%, aren't you growing up? They were plummeting 2.7 and 3.4%. And you think, and that they had not experienced any force majeure, right, the way we have. So we can't compare the two situations at all.
I see.
You cannot.
Let's talk more directly about the performance of President Akufo-Addo and his Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. What would you say their competencies have been post-COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, we're climbing up. The effect of these things were very shattering. I keep saying that the emphasis of the president at the time was saving life, protecting livelihood, and for that reason, we were able to keep down the numbers of those people who, unfortunately, succumbed to COVID-19 in the sub-region and indeed in Africa. We did exceedingly well. Did we over-exaggerate our strength? Maybe, because we went further to provide, free water, then halved electricity bills and so on, which was good for the citizenry, protecting livelihood and saving lives. It was bound to have an impact on the economy. And indeed, it is the reason why we took a deep nosedive.
And how would you say they have managed to turn things around post-COVID?
We're coming up.
In regards to the economy.
We look at what growth rate that we achieved last year. We had started climbing up a bit. And this year, as I'm saying, we projected to grow at 1.5. And now it is estimated for us to grow beyond or over and above 3%, more than doubling what projection that we had in the budget. It means we are making progress. And we had anticipated to plateau 2028. Now, by this growth pattern, it does seem that 2025, 2026 will be able to bounce back strongly.
I see. But there are those who say, despite the explanation you're giving us now, who think that the economic mosaic team, the NPP, have failed at delivering the kind of economy that the Ghanaian people will wish for. How do you convince those people?
That is what we are doing. That is what we are doing. That the effects of the COVID-19 was most shattering. And even though people are beginning to sing a different tune, our former president alluded to it. Even former President John Dramani Mahama, when we were hard hit, alluded to the impact of COVID-19, that was shattering and that the economies of African countries were being really destroyed. He owned up to it. Today, there's a different team that, we ought to have done better. But that's a different conversation. I'm just saying to us that the economy was shattered, but we started climbing up the ranks of the ladder. Now, I do hope that 2024 into 2025, we'll see that we are climbing up steadily.
A lot of times when we say the economy is climbing up, the question that comes to mind for me is, how are things really on the ground? How are things with the Ghanaian people? What do you think? What do you hear?
What I hear is that, things are hard. I'm a Ghanaian citizen. I represent constituents. and I go to constituents and I hear the complaints. Yes, inflation. If inflation is skyrocketing, people will feel the impact. If interest rates are skyrocketing, people will feel the impact. It will translate into the price of goods.
I see.
Including even food items, right? Today, inflation is climbing now.
At a very slow pace. We are still in the 38. We are not out of the woods at all.
We are not out of the woods. I like that phrase. We're not out of the woods, but we're still engaging. Don't forget, we climbed up to 58%.
Yes.
So if you are now 38%, what does it mean?
I mean, we've really
climbed down by 20 percentage points. That should be significant.
But the prices of goods on the market haven't gone down 20%.
Yes, we don't expect you to respond correspondingly, immediately.
I see.
We don't expect that to happen. And then, of course, we also do know that there are some dynamics which really is difficult to fathom. For instance, I'm told that the price of maize at Techiman is in the region of about 200 and something, 50 or so per bag.
Right.
It comes to Accra and it's about 500.
Well, is it not because you didn't build a proper value chain so that when it's coming to Accra, transportation and all
you
the other...
meaning who?
The NPP.
Well, it takes quite a while to do these things for all of them to gel together. But it's not for want of trying. Government is reconstructing silos and even warehouses and so on. We better